Welcome to Career Coffee Chat Live. It's a pleasure to see you today. I want to welcome you to the show and talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, which is Leveling the Paying Field, a book written by Rick Gillis, a master, what I call the job master. He's a career evangelist. I love everything about this book, and Rick has been a good friend for many, many years. So I'm very excited to have him on the show, and I'm also very excited to have you on the show today. So whether you're tuning in live today, whether you're listening to the podcast later, or listening to the replay, please don't be shy. Share your thoughts, your comments. Give us a shout out because we're here to help you thrive and elevate your career. That's what this is all about. Now, if you've never seen my smiling face before, my name is Aaron Urban. I'm the host of the Career Coffee Chat Show, and I'm an executive coach focusing on career acceleration for emerging and evolving leaders to help you remove those roadblocks that stand in the way of you achieving more impact, influence, and income. And speaking of income, we'll be talking all about how to elevate your income and level that paying field. Now, as you tune in live, please say hi, say where you're from, give us a thumbs up, give us a wave. And if you're listening to the podcast, please give us a star rating or a like or what have you, a comment based on whatever platform is your personal favorite. So please don't be shy. Give us your questions. We want to hear them. Now, what are we talking about today? Well, let's talk about who our rock star guest is today, all right? Rick has created the Quotient, okay? And that is a personal value calculation process to teach workers as well as their employers how to identify and assign value to individual job performance and personal accomplishments in an all new way. And it is earth-shattering, really is a brand new, amazing way to not only elevate your pay, but hey, for those of you tuning in from the employer side, it's a different way to consider performance reviews and being able to pay people for the work they do. Now, Rick, the creator of this very simple, easy to use performance metrics, shares with you today how the Quotient truly does level the paying field. And the result is not only equal pay for equal work to be realized, but even better, proper pay for outstanding performance becomes a new normal. Hallelujah. Can I get a thumbs up? Heck yeah for that. So let's talk about Rick. Leveling the Paying Field is the sum of Rick Gillis, who's an amazing rock star, career coach extraordinaire. And from his varied and colorful career in sales as a manager, author, a speaker, award-winning media host, and now an indisputable thought leader. I want to welcome Rick to the show. Rick, it's so great to have you. Let's talk about the leveling the playing field today together. This is leveling the playing field, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, Rick Gillis. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show today, Rick.
Thank you, Aaron. I have to correct you. You just said something, and I have done this many times myself.
Did the L come out?
Yes, you said leveling the playing field.
That tongue gets in my way every time.
When I came up with the idea, when I heard in my head leveling the paying field, of course, the first thing I did is I went to Amazon because I knew there were going to be 9 books called Leveling the Paying Field. There wasn't one. I was so crazy excited because I love the name of this book genuinely. And you know, I've written several books before, but this is my peak, no question. So anyway, thank you for that intro. That's crazy. I love all that. Thank you. I wish my mom was here to listen to all that.
Well deserved. I mean, there it is in the background. You can see it back there. Leveling the paying field. Don't let that tongue get in your way. The paying field, not the playing field. But it is kind of leveling the playing field, really. It is. You really step back from it and take a look at it, holistically. You are. Because it hasn't been a level playing field or a paying field for a very long time. And it's not just about equal pay or parity and that sort of thing. It's also for performance, because I coach a lot of high performing leaders, whether they be mostly female, but also males. And one of the struggles, a lot of people have is, hey, I'm busting my butt and I'm not seeing results as far as monetary results from that.
Right.
And it's a big deal.
Well, and this idea came from, since just a micro bio, I helped launch the very first job board in Houston. And as a result of that, And this is interesting because I don't come from an HR or staffing background, but I spent 10 years calling on those professionals who actually hire. But I became the face locally, and I wasn't an owner of this company. I was employee number one, but I became the face, the sales guy out there on the street. And people started asking me, how do you use this? I'm not joking, especially in Texas, this newfangled internet to find a job. And so I started explaining, and eventually that led to speaking locally and then speaking across Texas and speaking across the nation.
Absolutely.
4 books on
I
job
saw
search.
you too. I saw you
that's
spoke
how
with
we met.
BMI Houston years ago.
Right. Right. And so, but there was a lot of counseling along the way. And what you just said was interesting to me. Most of your clients being women, because most of my clients, especially in the last 5, 6, 7 years, have been, senior level men. And candidly and disappointingly, these men, and I'm going to tell you candidly, there was only one woman probably in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. And these were from CEOs to senior VPs, executive, all that stuff. They could tell me what they had done, the mechanics of what they had done, but they would tell me where they got to a point they could say their idea of accomplishment was they brought this project in on time and on budget. Or on time or under budget. And I'm like, that's not an accomplishment. That's what you were supposed to be doing. Now, and so I started coming up with these different workarounds that because they were long separated from their company, they didn't have access to accounting. And I started coming up with these workarounds. I'd say, we know the value of this. We know the value of this. We can insert this. Be defensible. Be conservative. Don't ever, if you save somebody $1 billion, you better be able to prove it on paper. If you save the company $1 million at that level, well, maybe you don't have to defend it so deeply.
Depending on the company, right?
Depending on the position. Yeah, depending on the position specifically. But that's what led to this whole quotient idea. And what the quotient is about, and this is another thing, Aaron, this was a God wink. I don't even know how I came up with it. I was literally riding my bicycle and I'd been beating my head to pieces because I knew there was something there and I couldn't quite get it out. I was riding my bike one Sunday morning and then it happened. I heard it. I saw the whole thing and I saw the book. I saw everything. The quotient is this. I am going to take, and this is the hardest part of the whole thing, and it's not difficult, but it's something that takes a little effort. And this is why I wrote the whole book about this. You have to determine the value of your contribution to your employer. Now, most people on a paycheck don't think like that. See, I'm a salesperson, always have been. And I know that if I don't sell something this month, I don't have a job next month. If I don't have a commission, if I'm not selling something, I don't have commission coming in, etc. But somebody who gets a paycheck, whether that's hourly or salaried, doesn't think like that. And it's what I call the accomplishment mindset. And everybody who gets paid should be thinking about what they're delivering in value. And so a lot of the book is about teaching people how to pay attention to what they're doing as they do it. That's the accomplishment mindset. Now, if throughout the year you can calculate that you saved $3,000 here and $12,000 there, and you made the company $17,000, and you add all these up, and then at the end of the year, you divide that by your base pay. So let's say I pay you $50,000 a year and you delivered $250,000 in value. Your quotient score or rank is a 5. Okay, now let me take this further because this goes to the pay parity aspect. I'm a guy, you and I are coworkers. We do the same thing. We have essentially the same certifications, the same training. Okay, so we're more or less equals. But this year, my quotient this year, for all of my efforts, when it was calculated, my quotient was a 7. I delivered 7 times my base pay to my employer. Yours was a 23. But since you were a 23, 16 times better than me. However, because I have the opportunity to go golf with the boss and other things, I got the promotion, I got the raise, I got the bonus. Okay, so now this quotient, and of course the book explains all this, but it's documented, it's defensible, it's conservative. You can share this information, and that's where it goes to the performance review, which of course goes way back into the book. But so if you have this document that shows this stuff, it's identified, it's calculated, and you can then go to HR. Now you could go to your boss, but I just got promoted. I'm over you now. So you're not going to go to me, but you're going to go to your boss's boss.
I'm pretty bad. too, by the way. I'm pretty bad.
So you go there first, or you go to HR, or maybe you go to the EEOC. And the nuclear option is you go find another job and show this list to somebody else and show them how much they should value you, and you negotiate the right rate from the beginning. So that, in simplicity, is what leveling the playing field is about, what the quotient process is about. And out of that, there is about 65-70% of the book is written for the individual, and the last 35-40% is written for enterprise.
Right. And for those of you just tuning in, if you don't know anything about Rick, Rick has been what I seriously call a career evangelist, because he has reshaped, even way back in the day when I was just first starting off as a coach, reshaped how I thought. I mean, I kind of had an idea from process improvement, and that was my background, because you had to justify your paycheck. You did. If you didn't justify your paycheck and understand, okay, this is a value, tangible value I bring to the organization, you may not have a paycheck. That was how my industry worked to a great degree, whether people actually want to articulate that or not. So when I heard Rick speak, I was like, oh my God, yes, everybody needs to understand their impact in metrics. So what tangible value are you bringing to the organization? Now, we'll talk a little bit about intangibles too, because they do have an impact and a value. Just maybe a little bit harder for people to suss out. So we'll chat about that in a moment. But for anybody tuning in, if you're interested in elevating your career at all, you have to keep what Rick calls, what do you call it? You call it
the accomplishment mindset?
Accomplishment mindset, right. So you actually have an accomplishments inventory. And by the way, that's page 37 in the book. Page 37 in the book is all about accomplishments inventory. I call it impact inventory. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing, right?
You need to know what value you bring, and you're able to articulate that to those during performance reviews, during the interview, on your resume, on your LinkedIn, with discretion, knowing that LinkedIn's a public platform. Okay, you might not want to share dollars and cents. So Hussein has just tuned in. He says, first of all, hi to Aaron and Rick. Great to see you, Hussein. And he's got a lot of thoughts, Rick. Warning.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Before we get to those questions, let's hold that right now. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about what you were saying. And Hussein, thank you for the question, and I'm going to get to it. Understand, first of all, there are only two reasons why you have a job. You're either going to make the company money or you're going to save the company money. Most jobs do not generate revenue. Most jobs are about saving the company money, and that's about efficiencies. If you can do the work of 3 people, I have to hire you. If you're not doing the work of the one that you should be at least meeting your minimums, I can't keep you. It's that simple. So that accomplishment inventory, that came from working with clients. And I'll tell you what, Aaron, and I think I even sent some clients your way, because if people would not do my mandatory accomplishment inventory, it was not negotiable. I would tell them, you're going to give me a list of your top, it depends on the level of the position you're seeking, but a C-suite senior VP, I would say I need 15 to 18 professional best accomplishments. I need to know the who, what, where, when, why, and how behind each one. And then I'll help you reduce it to that one sentence that I call the what and wow. And what and wow is this? And I'll tell you one of my own personal, when I was in real estate prior to moving to Houston many years ago, I was responsible for creating a commercial lease document that saved my company millions of dollars annually. Okay, if I was interviewing for a real estate job, they would say, the what is commercial lease document, and the wow is save the company millions of dollars. Because they're going to say, wow. That's why I call it the what and wow. Wow, how did you do that? And when somebody says, how did you do that? What they're really asking is, can you do that for me? If you can do that for me and guide that direction, that discussion in there, and say, and when I required my clients to write this up, they are now, when you have written up 12, 15 accomplishments with the who, what, where, when, why, and how, now you're ready to write a resume. And more importantly, now you are prepped for the interview. I don't care what they ask you. Tell me about a time you were working with a team and somebody fell out of the team, and how did you pick up the slack, and what was the net result of that slack in there? How did you pick up, and how did the rest of the team operate? Boom, boom, boom. Well, you don't even have to break eye contact. You're not going to do this. you're going to go right to it and answer the question because I have prepped you for that. And that's why I had 6 CEOs under my belt from this stuff. But candidly, most people didn't want to do that. And I would say, thank you. I wish you the best. I'll see you later. And I know you took some of them and you have a different process. So you didn't beat them up because I'm really genuinely no nonsense.
I was nicer. So I extracted the information just in a different way.
Yeah, I squarely hit him in the face. But
you're like, you do this now or else. And I have a different approach. But it's the same thing. It's the same.
It gets to the same place.
It's the same thing. Because I have, in order to, and just a real quick overview, in order for you to stand out, there's a very competitive job market right now. In order for you to stand out, don't expect your bullet point list of roles and responsibilities to do squat. Okay, it's just
responsibilities don't get it. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
You need to be able to talk about your impact. Now, sometimes that's not necessarily something you can quantify, but we need to be able to speak to that. And that's what I do. I work with people to help understand the impact of their contributions.
Let me tell you what, though, Aaron. I want to counter something you just said. In fact, everybody can quantify their value. And that's what a lot of the book is about, because like I said, it may be just that I'm efficient enough and so good at what I do and so knowledgeable, I can do the work of 3 people. That alone is quantification. True. You know, so you're generating 3 times if I had to pay the salaries for 3 people to do what you can do. True story. I knew a woman in Dallas who created a company and her board eventually kicked her out. And this was after about 10, 15, 12 years, whatever. I remember exactly how long. When they got rid of her, they realized it took them 12 people to replace her. And that's not uncommon when you get to that C-suite, that senior level, and you go, oh, did we blow it here? Anyway, now, so let's get back to Hussein's question, if you want.
Yeah, so he had a question. I mean, it's really around, is performance measuring is a mandatory. So to read this for those people who are tuning in later to maybe the auditory podcast, Quotient is a great performance measure, but is it mandatory for all companies? Well, no. People need to adopt this.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me answer that, because Hussein, there's nothing
here. But it's optional. If it's optional, what's the size of the difference between users and non-users, and how can companies be persuaded to use it and take advantage of its advantages?
Well, let me tell you what, Hussein, the book was only published this past Tuesday. Matter of fact, today it's a week old. So there is nothing about mandatory or non-mandatory. I would tell you that if a company is going to embrace it, not necessarily make it mandatory, you're going to get your best production out of those people who are your best performers. Now, I will tell you, one of my PR people, when we had our first discussion, challenged me and says, okay, so now we're going to see all these women that are making more money or are entitled to more money. Where's that money going to come from? Well, where it's going to come from is the people who have not been delivering the performance, and they either are not participating in this because they think it's beneath them, or they're not able to prove their value. Like I had a quotient of 7, you had a 23. It's time for me to go. They're paying me too much money, and they just gave me a raise and a bonus and all that.
It happens all the time.
Well, that's where that money can come from. So mandatory, no, it would be a matter if a company wants to embrace it, and I am in process of developing the training for this right now. So, I mean, it's a brand new process. And Hussein, thank you for the question. It's a very big question. But the fact is, I only invented this process over the last 2 or 3 years, and we only went public with it last week. So, Aaron, you're right in the front of this with, sharing me with the community, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a process we've used and leveraged with our clients for years. And now we're taking it public and deepening and broadening the understanding, because I'll share with you, while this book, it does have a lot of chapters. They're micro chapters, so you get through a lot of information. It goes
very short chapters.
Everything you need to know from, let's just say, the employee's perspective, and the final third or so for the employer's perspective. Like, how can you leverage this at an enterprise?
How to implement it, yes.
And there's some very interesting parts to this book. I mean, first of all, understanding what the quotient is, and then understanding what an accomplishments inventory is. What I love in here is, of course, page 21, chapter 6, your work does not speak for yourself. It doesn't. And that's the big myth. And I run up against all the time. I'm sure you have too, Rick. hardworking people, particularly technical experts, come in and get all this jargon, and they're like, "Whoa, they should just know." No, they don't. They don't just know. And by the way, you're expecting them to take time out of their wildly distracted minds to actually infer what you have to say. Not going to happen. Just not.
Well, I think that most people genuinely, and at least in my experience, and this comes from 23 years, like I said, of working with, and I've worked with everything from new college grads getting their first job to the C-suite. And invariably, I had to work people through and get them thinking about what they had done. And let me tell you another thing too, Aaron. It's not uncommon, especially in the mid-management and up, to work with somebody and I start asking a question and I say, how did you do this? Or what did you achieve? And I help them maybe figure it out. But invariably, I can usually find one or two additional accomplishments behind that, because I'll say, okay, here was the result. How did you do that? Well, I invented this process, or I was trying something new and it worked. Wait a minute, don't you understand? That's an accomplishment in its own right.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
not all accomplishments make money or save money, but they can create efficiencies and, once again, savings.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. And what I would love to touch on really quickly, because this leapt out at me when I was reviewing your book, it's okay for your boss to take credit for your work.
Well, okay, let me put it this way. First of all, and that's one of those chapter titles that's meant to get you going, what? I hope you're going to read it, right? Because the fact is, I'm the chief human resource officer, okay? And I was assigned to rewrite the human resources manual and put it out company-wide and all that stuff. We're a company of 5,000, 6,000 people, whatever. Okay, so we've been working on this thing for 6, 7, 8 months, a year, whatever, and it comes out. So I report to the C-suite, and we have our monthly meeting or quarterly or whatever, and they say, Rick, how's that manual coming? And I say, I'm finished. I got it done. You didn't hear me say my team and I. You heard me say I have completed it. Right. Now, we were talking a little bit just before, and I say this in the book, there are no scrolling credits at the end of my presentation that says, Bill and Lakeisha and Freddie and everybody else was involved. And there goes some scrolling credits. Thank you.
Right, scrolling credits, speaking of.
Right. But the thing is, you have to take it upon yourself to say, I was instrumental in the team that helped create and write the new human resources manual that our boss presented to management and was successfully received, or something. Right. And listen, there could have been, let's say there were 5 people in there. So let's just, for easy, we'll say 20%. Everybody contributed 20% to the rewrite. That's a lot, but you don't sell the team. You only sell yourself. Don't ever say we in job interviews or in presenting an accomplishment. You say I. And let me tell you something, Aaron, and this, I know you'll appreciate this. I've worked with a lot of women over the years, and this is not a sexist comment. This is candid observation. But guys will promote themselves all day long, and women won't. Now, this is really important. This is not, ladies, anybody paying attention to me, and any guy that doesn't think that's not comfortable with this. This is not about bragging. This is not about boasting. This is about informing. This is about informing. Do not, once again, there, go back to your work does not speak for itself. You do. If you're waiting for a slap on the back, it ain't coming. Now, if it does happen, I know companies do, in fact, they bonus and they recognize and they certificate and they give plaques and awards and all that stuff. But don't wait for that to happen. Not every company does it, but speak for yourself. Mm-hmm. And people know when you're bragging and they know when you're informing. And to say, hey, boss, I'd like you to know that I was able to knock out the X project the other night. I think I'm going to save us about $3,000 a month. Whoa, your boss is going $3,000 times $36,000 times 4 divisions. Oh, my God, we just saved. That's how people think. You need to think like that, too.
Well, you need to think like basically an executive. How would you define your impact? Like, what does that look like for you? Everybody needs to have that executive mindset in a way. And like I say, you need to be the entrepreneur of your career. You have to be the entrepreneur of your career. We need to be thinking those terms. And you're right, women do not speak up as much for themselves as men do. It becomes more natural for men to just, well, I did this and I did that. And women don't necessarily do that. And I will say that Not all men are comfortable with it either. In fact, a study, and it's
No
been quite a
question.
few number of years now, only 57% of men will even feel comfortable negotiating salary, while less than, I think it was 30% of women do. And that's huge. I mean, obviously there's a crying need to not only negotiate but also understand that your value and your worth. And expecting people to notice, working really hard and expecting people to notice is not going to happen. You need to make sure that you're speaking for yourself. All right. So that's great. So why is it that's okay, so your boss can take credit for your work as long as you make sure that you're vocal about it too. So that's important. Now the other thing that jumped out to me is let's see, your quotient and soft skills. So let's talk about that because I hear a little bit about soft skills. Obviously, in the work that I do, they're like, well, how do we approach that, and how does it even play a factor? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I think soft skills are just you know what? That happened in the interview. That happened in the first interview. And did you put it across? And were you genuine? Were you candid? But really, the quotient is about hard calculation, about delivery of contribution. It's
Right.
specifically the value of your contribution to your employer. You know what? Let me talk about that a little bit because there's 3 different quotient levels, and this is really important. First, there's a Q equal 1. Now, a Q equal 1 is what you're supposed to be doing, and that's how you keep your job. In other words, you're delivering the minimum required to keep your job. A quotient, and every company needs lots of Q equal 1s, which are people that are delivery, truck drivers, accounts payable, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, no company can survive if we don't have a bunch of Q greater than 1s, which means they're having big wins. I mean, if you go through the book, I think one of my biggest wins, and I won't tell the story, but I will say he was a banker here in Houston that I knew. His quotient was like 27,000. In other words, he delivered 27,000 times more than his annual salary. And to give you an idea what happened, it was during the FDIC many years ago, the late 90s, late 90s, 2000s, when they were closing down banks all over the nation, when the whole recession happened. And he came up with an idea he did not know this, but his bank was on the chopping block and the CEO had not told him, had not shared it with the rest of the office. Right. He walked into a meeting one Monday morning and said, I have a new idea for a new product. And he was chief of marketing. And they said, go with it. And he rolled it out and was singularly successful at saving the bank because of the revenue this new product generated.
That's great.
Now, he didn't know about it. He went to his boss later and said, you're kidding me. Why didn't you tell us? And the boss told him, if I'd have told you guys, you would have jumped like rats off a burning ship.
Right.
He says, I didn't want to freak everybody out. And then when you started to pull it through, now this was a need to know thing. And he was not in a place to need to know because the senior people, of course, knew this. But when you count, I mean, I forgot what the value was. His annual salary without bonus was about $56,000 at that time, as I recall. It might have been higher. But he saved a $3 billion bank. And so when you take that contribution, and I have it laid out there for you, it's in there. By the way, I have 14 Q studies in the book. Each Q study is a description of in detail of an individual I worked with and how we came up with. And I will tell you, Aaron, your story's in there. However, your name is not, because your name's in the acknowledgments in the back of the book. But your name is, so people will not necessarily know who it is because I changed all the names. In fact, Q study number 13 is my story. I used the name Brad, which was my supervisor's name for me, and I don't mind sharing that with people, but that is my real estate story when I saved the company millions of dollars in legal fees, and I didn't get a bonus, I didn't get a raise, I didn't get a promotion out of that. I didn't even remember that I had done that until 10 years when I was on the phone working with a woman, a client, and all of a sudden it struck me, I'm telling her what to do, and I went, I did this. Oh my God. So I went to my whiteboard while I'm still on the phone and I wrote down, I just put leased cover sheet, leased document. And then I figured out later. So I even used my own very conservative workaround to show how I saved the company between $1.5 million and $2.5 million a year. I think it was actually more. My company was a national company, 26 office parks across the nation. And this idea that I developed for my little bitty office park took fire and went across the entire nation. So I saved the company a lot of money. But by the time I remembered this, recalled it. The company didn't even exist anymore. It had been sold off. It's like, I even tried calling some people. And I said, "Do you remember when?" And they're going like, "No, that was a long time ago." So anyway, but this came out of job search. This whole leveling the playing field came out of job search. But then when I realized how this thing could equalize pay, and listen, this equalizes pay for everybody. Right. It's not just women. It's anybody of color. Anybody. It is Black people. It is Hispanics. It is white men who are not being paid fairly. Because I can look back in those same real estate days, and I didn't learn till later on that I was substantially paid less than my compatriots were at the different office parks across the nation. Mm-hmm. That wasn't right. I didn't realize it back then, but I found out in discussions later on, and I was like, whoa. So there's a lot of men that are not receiving what they should be getting based on what they're delivering.
Right. Anybody really. So if you're truly embracing DE&I, then this is a part of that. It's truly leveling the playing field.
Well, and I'm all about that. DE&I is very important, and I don't care how aggressive we talk about it. It's action that's going to make a difference. Because and I'm reading, and we're all reading all kinds of stuff about it. But I'm afraid, to a large degree, it's lip service as opposed to truly embracing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of talent out there, and they don't all look the same.
Exactly. And what's frustrating to me, and just a quick on my soapbox right now, is what's fueling the Great Resignation? Well, quite frankly, it's not just because people don't want to go back into the workplace. It's not just burnout. It's also people being fed up. They're fed up. They really are. They're fed up with the lip service to EOE. They're fed up with the lip service to DE&I. They're fed up with not being paid equally. They're fed up with not getting their talent recognized. I don't know how many stories I hear of my clients who have a wild amount of talents and gifts, and even when they share, hey, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to evolve my career within the organization, they're shut down because their bosses.
Well, there we go back. See, there we go back to leveling the playing field. This is all documented. Mm-hmm. It's all meant to be prepared and submitted at your annual performance review. But that doesn't mean you don't share it weekly, daily, monthly, whenever it's appropriate. If you have an accomplishment in your mind and you walk into the elevator and the senior vice president is there, that's 20, 30 seconds you may never get again. When that person says, "How are you doing?" and you say, "Great weather we're having, isn't it?" You've just blown an enormous opportunity when you could have said, right, "I'd like you to know about a little project I was working on. I think it's going to save about $3,000 a month across my department." Whoa, tell me more. Tell me more is genuine. And all of a sudden, what's your name again? Mm-hmm. Now they're going to remember you. And those opportunities do happen. And when they don't happen and you see an opportunity to insert yourself, it's informing. It's not bragging. Right. It's not boasting. And if it is bragging and boasting, it'll be received as such. And that's a big old black mark against your face.
All right. And for those of people who aren't comfortable with the difference, bragging and boasting, it's when you start extrapolating, like you're explaining like your involvement or the facts. You're really informing is just you're telling actual fact, like this happened. There's nothing wrong with that. And it just amazes me how many people aren't comfortable with it.
Well, not just that, Aaron, but your supervisors, and especially if you get past your immediate supervisor and further up. And I always say you share your accomplishments with your boss and your boss's boss and her boss and his boss. Mm-hmm. Share them all the way up and down so that when your boss does leave for another opportunity or is terminated or whatever happens, your name comes up first. You may not be ready for it, but I'll tell you what, I don't think, what was the guy, who was the really famous, I can't think of his name, the CEO of GE all those years ago.
Jack Welch?
Yes, Jack Welch. Mm-hmm. He famously said that he knew he was not ready to be CEO the day he started. And I think this is the one where he said the first thing he did is got up that morning and puked and then went to work and set the world on fire. And we're still talking about him. He's gone, right. But he said that he was just scared to death. Well, guess what? That's normal. That's okay. You can be scared to death. Use that energy to flow through and do wonderful things.
That's right. And by the way, if you're wondering when, to learn more about your accomplishments and when to share, that's page 60.
Right. Yeah.
I love it.
This was 4 years. This book was 4 years in the writing, altogether,
Yeah,
adding it up. It
because I would
went
ask
through a
Rick,
lot of
how are you doing
changes.
writing a book?
Yeah.
4 years. It's so, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you tuning in now and later, I can't say enough about how important this information is for your career development and most importantly, your salary development. So, for those of you who aren't quite comfortable with articulating your accomplishments or your contributions or aren't sure how to do it or anything about that, get the book. Seriously. And it's available on, where is it available, Rick? Share with people where
Well, there's a lot of places globally. Seriously, globally. Go to rickgillis.com. As soon as you land on the homepage there is an order book, and it will take you to all the different places. Obviously, the Amazons of the world, but there's Rakuten globally. It's available. There is Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target, Walmart. It's all over the place. It's available through them anyway. And rickgillis.com. All right, there it is, rickgillis.com. And there's some other information in there. And I would also ask people if they wanted to connect with me on LinkedIn to please do so. And I have just launched a Leveling the Paying Field LinkedIn group. So if anybody would like to come on there and participate, and I am the admin at this point. I'm going to add some other people along the way, but I do have to approve you coming in. So if anybody wants to come in to be malicious or tear things apart, I won't have that. There's going to be civil discussion. You can push against me all you want, challenge me all you want. If I don't have a good answer, I will appreciate that. I will love it. I will do better. But I'm not going to have anything. If it's not civil, I'm not going to keep people there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the same rules I have with my groups as well. So, Rick, is there anything I haven't asked you that you definitely want to share, that you want that gift to give to people from this book? What's the big message that I haven't asked you yet?
Well, the quotient is, I'm going to repeat myself, I think, Aaron. The fact is, I want people to adopt this mindset of paying attention to what they do as they do it. I do recommend that they take, and this is crazy because I know how busy we all are, but I'm going to ask people at the end of the day to take 3 to 5 minutes and go to their email and just make some notes at the bottom of the day and say, or at the top of the day, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever, and say, today here's the thing, accomplishments don't happen now. They start here and they grow over a period of time. So when you put something in your calendar and then you go back, and I do this regularly, go back 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months, you go back and I go, whoa, that's when Aaron and I started working together. And now we have achieved this. And that's really a cool thing to do. So you're not going to remember all the stuff you think you're going to remember. I mean, you have no idea what you had for lunch yesterday. What makes you think you're going to remember 3 months ago when you started X and delivered X, and the value is now coming apparent, but you can't track it? So I do have a piece in there about tracking your best accomplishments, and not just your best. Invariably, little things start this, and they grow into bigger and better things. And listen, if you saved your department $300 a day, that can be a lot of money. Don't put yourself down because it wasn't 3,000 or 300,000 or $1 million or whatever. Little things lead to bigger things, and it's fair and it's okay. And especially if you're entry level, they brought you on because they saw value. Now you got to deliver it.
That's right. And I mean, it's for everybody. And for those of people who think, oh, well, that's great if you're an executive. You know how many executives I talk to that have no idea, or really struggle to articulate that they've just been building on momentum, and that's it. So don't think it's just for executives. It's for everybody, and so important. And I tell my clients this, if it's not a daily thing, that's like too much. Set a calendar notification every quarter to sit down and add to your accomplishments inventory or contributions.
I think it needs to be more often than a quarter, though.
Whatever you want to call it. More than a quarter? I
think it needs to be 4 more often than a quarter. At least I would say once a week, but monthly at maximum. Because in a quarter, you've done so many cool things in 3 months that I wouldn't remember. I wouldn't, and that was before the hair was white. I wouldn't have remembered all that.
To be fair, Rick, your hair's been white for a while. He is being cool. I mean, everybody tries to be like, you see people dyeing their hair gray and they're like in their 20s. I was like, Rick was cool before he was cool.
Oh, it's funny too, because I actually, when I was younger, I My mother, this is a true story, and this is just useless information, not relevant, whatever. But my mother was upset. I was aging her when I started going gray, and this is back in my 40s. And so she actually got me some Grecian formula. Let me tell you what, that stuff, they say at 5 minutes,
Yeah.
It does work in 5 minutes. They don't tell you about the half-hour preparation before and after. I had to repaint my bathroom because I had that stuff smeared all over the walls, and it is permanent. It is like glue. I had to repaint. I told my mother, I'm going gray. Don't even ask another question. I had to repaint the bathroom. True story. Thank you. Thankfully, it was a little apartment and a little bathroom. I was single back in those days, and I had to, yeah. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't worth. No.
I'm just glad you embraced your natural color, but that's hilarious. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, well, it was my mom. I loved her to death. So I was like, Mom, really? And she said yes. And she actually bought me a box of Grecian formula. And I didn't know I needed help. I didn't know I should.
It was on the bathroom.
It was on the walls on both sides of me, on the side of the sink. It was I had to repaint.
Oh gosh. Well, it is like hardcore dye.
Well, it is hardcore. I didn't know what dye was about. I didn't know anything about it at all. So anyway, there's a bonus for your listeners today, your viewers.
Don't buy Grecian formula, or if you do, be careful.
Yeah.
Only.
Yeah, do not write. It needs a warning on the outside of the package.
But for those of you tuning in to the Career Coffee Chat Show, whether you're watching this live as replay or whether you're listening to the podcast, do go out there, check out rickgillis.com. This is not just an advertisement. This is me earnestly telling you as an executive career advancement coach, this book is gold, and it's tremendous amount of value shared in the book. So I definitely encourage you to check out Leveling the Paying Field. Don't let your tongue get in your way and say playing field, although it does both. It levels both the playing field and the paying field.
And everybody. I would ask anybody to please, how important it is, Amazon reviews. So if you could write it, if you like it, I don't care. Be candid. I want you to be honest with it. But yes, please write reviews. Reviews do help visibility and all the other things that happen. So rickgillis.com. And an Amazon review
group too. Hop on the LinkedIn group so you can ask nosy questions of the author himself, so he can help you along the way. And I will share that the book is very, very easy to read, very easy to get through, and there's tons of information. So I highly encourage this. If you are at all interested in elevating your career, this is the book that needs to be in your library. Not just in your library, but actually read, because you know how it is. You buy that book and then it sits there. I mean, what is this? What was the study you read, Rick? Is like how many percent of books they just read like the first chapter and that's it?
Oh, that broke my heart. I was told, I read, something I read that said that most people never read past the second chapter of a book they buy. Mm-hmm. And so I went back to my library when I had a extensive library, and I couldn't believe all the bookmarks, because I said, not me. I read all my books, and every book I had a bookmark in it. Yeah, and so I think I do better with Kindle because I just keep flipping through them. I keep going back and forth to them. But I was astonished how many that was accurate for so many of my books. Yeah. I was sad.
I'm the opposite. I get through 3/4 of it, and this is the last quarter I can't finish for whatever reason. And it's also interesting, Rick shared with me, he goes, I really put like the meaty stuff right at the beginning, so make sure they read it.
Yeah, get the good stuff up front. Right. Yeah, that's it.
But, hey, I love the fact that all of his chapters, and I'm a big organization freak, just a little bit. I mean, maybe that's why I was in continuous improvement, but doesn't matter. Anyway, but I love the fact that all your chapters are listed in a way that makes sense. So if I'm looking for, let's say, I want to know how to prepare for a performance review, I can go to page 96, it's chapter 27, and talk about personal performance review, the work diary. It's right here, right? I love that. I hate reading books that they have all these chapters, and it's like, when the rooster chased the moon. What are you talking about? Like, it makes sense. So I love that. Thank you.
You bet. It's an easy layout, deliberately.
Yeah.
Bite-sized pieces.
For those of you watching the replay later, or you're listening to the podcast, don't be shy. Pop your questions in the comments. We will get back to you. We're here to help you elevate and level that paying field. Rick, it's been a deep pleasure having you on the show. thank you so much. Thank you for writing this book. It's been many years coming, and it's just wonderful. I'm so excited for you, and I'm so excited for the world to receive this information. It's so important.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it, especially a
Absolutely.
week after it published. Brand new.
Absolutely. Woohoo!
Yes.
Go book, go Rick.
You bet.
All right.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's such a pleasure. And for all of you tuning in, it's such a pleasure having you. If you're watching the replay later, just know that I'm here. We're here for you. So don't be shy. And for all of you, until next time, keep elevating and leveling that playing field, my friends.
Thank you. Bye-bye.